Okay, so what we were looking at was this rational actor explanation, right? Where we had, by the way, this is it. That's all that's left. So we'll definitely be done Friday. So we'll have our test on Monday. Okay. So no worries about that. I'll give your third test back to you by Friday. I'll try to get that graded by then. So we were looking at these rational actor explanations, right? And we said we've got these different groups. We have our politicians. Who want to be sure that they get elected, right? And you have the voters who want these government-provided goods and services, G&S, goods and services, right? So what we have here is that when we're having our elections to decide what we want, these can be determined by a very small group of people. So, for example, let's look at what's happening here. So we've got our VM divided by E, R over E times V over R, VM over B, right? Where VM here is the vote count on an issue. So this could be a particular politician. This could be building a stadium. This could be increasing taxes to pay for police and fire protection. It could be anything. E here is our eligible voting population. R is our registered voters. B is our booth voters. So if we look at this, we say, okay, here's how many people are going to vote on the issue, right? Say, I think in the last election that we had here in Springfield, you had maybe 12 or 15% people voting, right? So you had 12 to 15% vote. Well, here's your number of registered voters, right? Here's the people that are eligible to vote. Well, that's everybody that's essentially over the age of 18 in Springfield, right? Who's not a felon. How many of those registered to vote? Okay, well, that's some ratio. Of those that registered to vote, though, because registration can be a pain in the butt, right? You've got to go and you've got to fill out the forms and you've got to prove that you are who you are and you've got to prove that you actually live in the city. So there's some work involved in that, right? And so there are some people that are eligible to vote that have not registered. There are some that have registered that go and show up, and then there's a portion that are registered that don't bother to show up, right? They forget about it. It's not important to them. They don't remember, etc. They have work that day. They're sick. It can be anything. And then of our booth voters, there's some ratio here that actually votes for the issue. So we can have some tax, or we could have a stadium, or you could have your mayor, etc., be elected by a very, very small group of people. 12 to 15% of the vote in Springfield. It's not that large, especially on the off presidential elections. So the ones that they have like in April where they're electing city councilmen and things like that, you'll get 5 to 10% of the people voting, if that. Which means all you got to do is basically get, your friends together and make sure that they show up to vote. So what you have here is you have these really, really small constituencies can drive a lot of this. And to give you an example, you've got 2 different types of cancers here. You've got prostate. You've got breast. Federal spending on this for research is $255.6 million. 9.2 million, all right? So spending about twice as much on breast cancer as we do on prostate cancer research. But if you actually look at the numbers here, you've got of new cases. In any particular year, you've got 147.8 divided by 100,000. Here you've got new cases, 124.6 divided by 100,000 new cases. So those are fairly comparable, a little bit higher for prostate than it is for breast cancer. If you look at the number of deaths in any particular year, 22.3 divided by 100,000. $22.2 divided by 100,000. And if you look at this in 15% lifetime incidence, 12.3% lifetime incident, right? Now there's a saying that says that 1 in 3 men will get prostate cancer. The reason that it's 15% is because even though you can die before you get to the point where you're in the 1/3 is basically what that means. So you have these 2 diseases here that have fairly comparable numbers of new cases, extremely comparable numbers of deaths, extremely comparable numbers of lifetime incidents, and yet you've got these numbers here where you're spending 559 million. This is federal dollars. It does not include private or state university and all that kind of stuff. Spending on breast cancer research and prostate cancer is $255.6 million. Now, I'm not saying this because I don't like girls, right? I like girls. I'm a big fan of girls. I'm a big fan of their breasts, right? But why do we have this type of thing? Why do you have that discrepancy? Does the government hate guys?
Breasts have a lot more friends who turn out to vote.
That's exactly right. When was the last time you heard of a race to raise money for prostate cancer research? How many races do you have for breast cancer research? Lots, right? Packages put little bitty pink ribbons on their things for different types of goods and services, right? Women have marches on Washington asking for more money for prostate cancer research, etc. And in fact, one of the cancer institutes came out and said, look, all the mammograms that you guys are getting, they're raising so many false positives, the benefits aren't worth the cost. The costs are larger than the benefits. Stretch the mammograms out. Don't go every year, go every 2 years, every 3 years or whatever. And this was like a year or 2 ago. Do you guys remember what happened to that? How did that go over? They changed their guidelines back to fine, just leave it the way it is. Because what were people saying? Were people thinking logically about it? I'll give you got a 50-50 chance of guessing right. No. So what you have here is you've got this situation where a small group of people can drive a lot of policy if you can make a lot of noise, right? And this is a perfect example. And once again, I'm not saying that I think they should reduce breast cancer research to 255.6 million. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not even saying that there shouldn't be a discrepancy. Maybe if you figure out what breast cancer causes, then once you have that cure, it's easier to get the other cures for the other diseases. I don't know. I'm not that type of doctor. I'm just saying you have these two different diseases here that basically kill men and women at essentially the same rate, but one of them gets a whole lot of money, one of them doesn't get a whole lot of money because guys don't even know what their prostate does. Right? So you can have these small groups can drive a lot of what's going on here if you can essentially get out the vote with our stadiums, with our taxes, with our mayors, etc. And in essence, what we can do is that we can also cast the issue in a certain way to get basically what we want. So I'm sure you guys have heard, or maybe you haven't, about different people suing over the ballot issue and the ballot language. Hey, the ballot language needs to be like thus and so. The ballot language needs to be changed to say this and that. The ballot language is confusing. A vote for yes is really a vote for no. Right? Have you guys heard about that? If you haven't, as you get older, you'll hear that. Right? Vote no on Proposition 2 if you really want Proposition 2 to pass. Because the way that they had the ballot language is backwards. So we can also change it in those particular ways. So let's assume that we have these different choices. No stadium, old stadium, new stadium, very nice new stadium. And here are our 5 voters. We got voter A, voter B, voter C and D, and E. Here are their options. Here's, in essence, are what these voters would like. And this is kind of related to what's called the median voter model. All right? So the median voter model looks at different things and it says, okay, here's these two extremes. Here's the left. Here's the right. Right? And the idea is that people on the far left are never going to vote for somebody that's more conservative, and people that are conservative, far conservative, are never going to vote for somebody that's more liberal. So if these two candidates are right here, here's candidate X, here's candidate Y. Candidate Y is going to get all these people. Candidate X is going to get all these people. All right, so the candidate X wins. Or an alternative way to look at it is like this. Here's a beach. There are people evenly distributed along this beach that each want ice cream. The ice cream is completely identical between the two different people that are selling it. It's 100% identical. So people are going to go to the ice cream store that's closest. So these people are spread evenly along this beach. If I'm going to open my ice cream store, I'll open it up here. And the other guy opens his store here. Right? We're right next to each other. This guy right here, A, is going to get all these people. Where do all these people go? They go to B. So what can A do? He literally jumps to the other side. Now B is going to get these people. A gets all these people. What does B want to do? If he just jumps just to the other side here, now A gets all these people, B gets all these people. Same thing, A jumps again. right? And when you're all said and done on the beach, you have these people, like we said, that are evenly distributed along the beach. You'll have A here, you'll have B here. A gets all these people, B gets all these people. It's the exact same thing here. The people that were marching in Charlotte with their torches and stuff, Charlottesville. Here's their two choices, candidate X or candidate Y. All right, well, they're going to vote for this guy. If they're over here, they're going to vote for this guy. They capture all of those votes, right? All this person has to do is jump over here and they can get these people. This person jumps over here, they get these people. This person jumps over here, they get these people. So that in essence, when it's all said and done, typically speaking, politician-wise, you got politician X right here, you got politician Y right here, they're basically right in the middle. Right? This is old political advice. Go as far to the left or as far to the right to grab the nomination, and as soon as you get that, move as quickly as you can to the middle. It's the same thing here. So this idea is this median voter model is that in essence it's this median voter. You want to essentially kind of get to this middle. So here's our choices. No stadium, old stadium, new stadium, very nice stadium. If it was all just based upon who gets the most votes and you had 4 of these different things, new stadium would win out, right? We would get this new stadium. That's what we should do. But if we want to control the ballot issue, what we can do is we can have this choice right here. We can have our choice be very nice new stadium. So here's your choice. Your choice is very nice new stadium or no stadium. It gets torn down. And if we have this, how's this guy going to vote? He votes no stadium. He's out. How's this guy going to vote? He votes for it. He's in. What are these people going to do? Exactly. Very nice new stadium is closer to their values than new stadium. They'll go for very nice stadium over no stadium. This guy right here, what will he do? He goes this way, right? Because he's closer to no stadium than very nice new stadium. So he says, no, screw it, I don't want that. He votes no. And so what we end up getting here is we get 3 votes to 2. Very nice new stadium wins, despite the fact that only 20% of the population wanted a very nice new stadium. Right? And remember, you don't even have to get everybody to vote. All you got to do is get some people to vote. 12 to 15%-ish. Which means that we can have this other related issue. So not only can we have these problems with the ballot issue, not only do we have these problems with our voting, we can have all kinds of biased information. There's a new tax bill that they're talking about now. Half of the group says the tax bill is the best thing since sliced bread. The other half says the tax bill is horrible. Which is it? I don't know. You think it's possible that the people that want the tax bill to get passed are focusing on the benefits and not focusing on all the costs? Do you think the people that don't want the tax bill to get passed are focusing on all the costs and not really focusing on the benefits? Exactly. So, what do you choose? When you have the study comes out that says the economic impact of the new stadium what did we say it was? $294 million? Is that what they said? Something like that for the one there in Santa Clara? Do you think the average guy in the street even understands what that means? They don't understand how the study's conducted. They don't understand the difference between a type 1 multiplier and a type 2 multiplier, between discounting, between how jobs are created. They don't understand the fact that they're actually counting costs as benefits, right? Because in essence what they will do is that they will say, look, the stadium will cost, and I'm making up a number here. You see this all the time. The stadium cost $100 million to build. And what they will do is they'll say, oh, look, we'll spend this $100 million, and the $100 million we'll have to hire, I'm making up a number here, 2,000 people to build the stadium. That's not a benefit, that's a cost. And so what they will do on the studies is that they do all kinds of things. I mean, forget all the stuff about discounting. You forget all the things about the costs are distributed across the whole state of Texas, but the benefits are concentrated. Forget all that. They have costs as benefits. The $100 million to build the stadium is not a benefit, that's a cost. But it's here. It's biased information because people, oh, well, it's 2,000 construction workers, that sounds pretty good. I guess we should go for that. And so we have these policies getting passed. And interestingly enough, when you look at these vote totals, a lot of times, even when voters say no, we don't want that. A lot of those cities just go ahead and do it anyway. They just say, yeah, we changed our mind, we're going to go ahead and just do it anyway. So it's a really interesting phenomenon. I'm wondering if it's starting to turn around. Because I've noticed that they were making these exact same arguments in St. Louis to keep the Rams, and that didn't go over very well. People didn't go for that. Same thing here for the stadiums in LA, for the two new teams that went in there. I'm kind of wondering if maybe this is starting to turn around, but I'm not holding my breath. So let's kind of tie everything together here at the end. Let's look at some tax and some antitrust issues. Because we've been seeing these antitrust issues from the very beginning. We saw them in movies, we saw them in music, we've seen them in sports, where in essence you have a whole bunch of people that have gotten together and they either have an explicit exemption or it's an implicit exemption, right, from antitrust. So let's look at the tax issue first. And let's kind of go back and let's recall that we had our players, right, and we had our depreciation. Of our players, and the owners were able to not only count against or on their balance sheet the cost that they paid for the players, right, their wages, they're also able to count the depreciation of these players, right? They're able to basically double count these guys. And we have some tax reform that occurred that limited this to 50% of the purchase price over 5 years. currently, you can depreciate 100% over 15 years, right? And so the question is, well, why this change? Why go from 50% of the purchase price over 5 years to 100% over 15 years? And you got a couple of reasons here. One, it makes it just easier for the IRS. Basically, you're saving time and money fighting owners in court. It's not that there's a whole bunch of tax returns to look at, right? There's not that many of them. It's just easier just to not have to sue them all the time. And according to the IRS, they said, well, we think people will pay more in taxes, actually. So let's see if this is true. Got net operating revenue. Non-roster depreciation. Amortization for our loans, etc. We're going to assume that these guys are constant. They're not changing. Let's assume that these profits and losses claimed by the owner on their personal taxes. So we have our old plan where we have depreciation equal to 0.5p divided by 5, right? This is going to give us our old level of depreciation. The new plan our depreciation P divided by 15, right? We can call this guy D new. So let's look at these gains that accrue to the owner. I'm going to call this guy G, right? So G here is our summation. T equals 1 to 15 tau D new minus E over 1 plus R to the T minus summation T equals 1 to 5 tau D old minus E over 1 plus R to the T. Okay? So this tau here is our owner's tax rate. We've already explained what D new and D old is. That's the amount of depreciation. We know what R is. R is our interest rate or our discount rate. We know what T is time. And we know what E is our expenses. Okay. So basically our non-roster depreciation. So we can rewrite G here as such. Tau D new minus old So it's a pretty simple situation, right? If G is greater than 0, the tax shelter is more valuable. All right? If G is less than 0, the IRS is right. The tax shelter becomes less valuable. So they should have gone to they're correct going to you could depreciate the purchase price over 15 years as opposed to depreciating half the purchase price over 5 years. Now you guys understand why even though it's only 5, it's half the price for 5 years, as opposed to the full for 15. We understand that it has to do with our expected or our present value, right? Right. We know that these dollars out here, I mean, we're going to depreciate 1/15 out here of the purchase price, whatever this number is. It can be any number that you want it to be. So 1/15 in 15 years, how does that compare to one-fifth here in 5 years? Right? Even though it's a shorter time, it's a larger amount. 1/15, 20%. 1/15, 20%, 1/15, 20%, 1/15, 20%, 1/15, 20%. Done. These are all zeros. 1/15, 1/15, 1/15. But these 1/15ths are occurring way out in the future. They're 15 years out in the future. So even though you're able to deduct the full purchase price, you have to do it over 15 years. So you have all of those years from 6 to 15 that have less value, and these guys right here are smaller than these guys. So this is going to be different from person to person, right? And what you can have, I mean, it's going to depend upon lots of different things. So here is our earnings greater than 0. Here are our earnings less than 0. Here is our gain greater than 0. Here is our gain less than 0, right? And depending upon which numbers that you put in here, you essentially have something that kind of looks like this when you plug all this in. All right, so there's some level of earnings here. There's some level of gain here that make these guys as big as they can possibly be. So if you use some of these for a typical sports team, 41.5, 16, bless you. So let's let our purchase price be 355 million. Let's let R be 3%. Let's let tau be 35%. So we have here on our D old 0.5 times our purchase price, 35.5 divided by 5. Here's what we can deduct every single year, 35.5 million. Our D new is our purchase price, 355 divided by 15. 23.7 million per year, except we get to do it for 15 years. And when we plug in these numbers here, so we can plug in, say, 0.35, we can plug in 23.7 minus E. This right here is equal to 11.9. This right here is 4.6. This guy right here is 0.35. This guy is going to be 35.5 minus E. All right. When we plug all this in and you run through the math, you get something that looks like this. G is equal to 41.5 minus 2.6 E. All right. In other words, if E is greater than 16 million, they're worse off, right? If E is here, hey, I'm worse off. If E is here, I'm better off. And of course, we can see our owners manipulating E to their advantage. Depending upon what's best for them. Okay, we'll pick up from there on Friday.